Good morning. Welcome. My name is Tani Cantil-Sakauye, and I am the President and CEO of the Public Policy Institute of California. We're glad you joined us for this distinguished panel and this exciting event. PPIC is pleased to present this virtual program featuring the leaders of California's 3 public higher education systems. This event is part of the Sutton Family Speaker Series. And I'd like to take this time to thank Tom and Marilyn Sutton and their family members for their support of this annual series. As a reminder before we begin, PPIC is a public charity and does not take or support positions on any ballot measure or legislation, nor does it support, endorse, or oppose any political parties or candidates for public office. And finally, before we begin, if you have a question for any of our speakers, please send an email with your name, organization, and question to the email address on the screen, ppiceventquestions@gmail.com. We have reserved 15 minutes at the end of our program to devote to an interactive engagement with our audience for these questions. Now I'm pleased to welcome our 3 speakers today. And I'll just give you a brief introduction of their extensive and distinguished biographies. More information can be found on our PPIC website. I'll start with Dr. Michael V. Drake. In August of 2020, he became the 21st president of the University of California. As president, he has been a strong advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. All of these efforts at the university. Under President Drake's leadership, the University of California has expanded its strong commitment to access, affordability, and academic excellence, all while weathering the COVID-19 pandemic. During this period, the university also continued to grow its enrollment, increase student diversity, and enhance student support and affordability. Next, I invite Dr. Mildred García to the screen. In October 2023, Dr. Mildred García began her tenure as California State University's 11th chancellor. She is the first ever Latina to lead the nation's largest and most diverse 4-year public university system. Prior to her appointment as chancellor, Dr. García served as president of the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, where she was a strong and internationally renowned advocate for public higher education, working to influence federal policy and regulations on behalf of 350 member colleges and universities. Due to an unexpected family emergency, Dr. Sonia Christian, Chancellor of the California Community Colleges, is unable to join us today. However, we are pleased to be joined by her colleague, Dr. Aisha Lowe. Dr. Lowe joined the California Community College Chancellor's Office in 2020, and she presently serves as the Executive Vice Chancellor of the Office of Equitable Student Learning, Experience, and Impact. In this leadership position, Dr. Lowe leads academic affairs, student services, and workforce and economic development, overseeing over $3 billion in funding and numerous statewide programs and initiatives. PPIC welcomes all of you, such distinguished speakers, for giving of your time today for this event. And to start, I have an opening question for all of you, and I'll start with you, President Drake. Same question for everyone. What is the top issue facing higher education in California today, and how is your system approaching it?
Well, thank you very much. Very happy to be here and happy to join with my colleagues to talk about these important topics. Yeah, I think of education and healthcare having some similarities, and when I hear that question, and for both of us, for healthcare and education, more is better. And so we are limited in what we do by the resources we have, not in the number of things that we can do that are good. And so it's a higher education institution, our job, our daily work is to be the best university we can be, provide the greatest number of opportunities to the greatest number of students that we can. We are always limited by resources. Resources are, of course, not infinite, and so we have to be very thoughtful about our costs. And I would think we're all really constrained by a challenging cost environment, the challenging housing environment in California. All of those things are issues that we have to work with every day to try to make sure that we can continue to advance access, affordability, and excellence.
Thank you.
I think maybe let me say two other quick things. The other thing, I'm sorry, I'm being rude and interrupting myself by saying, I also want to just mention the politicization of higher education, that over these last few years, things that were straightforward and important for us to do have been woven into the political arena in a way that it's been challenging for us as well. And forgive me for taking that extra time to mention that other piece, but thank you and appreciate the time to talk.
Thank you, Drake, President Drake. We welcome all of your answers. I'll have the same two-part question to Chancellor Garcia. Top issue, and what are you doing to confront it?
First of all, thank you, and to be here with this distinguished panel. It's great being with friends and new friends. I would begin by saying, like President Drake, that the higher ed landscape has shifted dramatically in the last several years, and we are looking at delayed learning and greater social emotional needs and mental health issues, as Dr. Drake spoke about, because of the pandemic. In addition, we have seen a decline in enrollment, especially for our most vulnerable students. Again, a result of what happened with the pandemic. And also for us, is the need to continue to be affordable, and most importantly, to address cost of attendance for our students. And finally, I would say the misconception that a college degree is no longer needed. I think that too is a major issue that we are confronting.
Thank you, Chancellor. Same questions to you, Vice Chancellor Lowe.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. First, I just want to say what a pleasure and honor it is to share space with you, Chancellor Garcia, President Drake. I also want to thank PPIC for hosting this conversation and all of the exceptional work that you do within the field to help us do the work we do. I will add to what my colleagues have shared, certainly second what both President Drake and Chancellor Garcia have shared. I will add to that for the community colleges, we also think one of the most challenging issues facing higher education today is that it's not a part of the lives of millions of Californians who stand to benefit the most from a college education. There is an increased demand for higher education, coupled with drastic changes in the trends of population growth over the last few decades. And that has left too few higher education opportunities for the most disenfranchised Californians. So we're excited for the goals that the state of California has set, partnering with our colleagues in the governor's office to meet the 70% attainment goal for all working age Californians by 2030. And for us, focusing in particular on those 6.8 million Californians that have a high school diploma but do not have a college credential. We believe strongly that we need to understand that the traditional pathways to degrees of the past won't have to be innovated, right, and redesigned for this post-traditional student that is often composed of working adults and working parents. And so we're excited to do that work through the work of our new chancellor, Dr. Christian, and our new Vision 2030.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Lowe. And for all of you, I hope we get an opportunity here to discuss those issues in depth and as much as you'd like. My next question is a little bit more about background, but for you, President Drake, you joined us at PPIC first time in early 2021 during the pandemic several years ago. And that was about 6 months into your tenure as president of the UC system. As you reflect on the past few years and the challenges ahead, what are one of the two most important things you learned about your job?
Well, first, I appreciate the chance to talk with you then, and this chance to come and visit with you for a kind of reflection on these last couple of years. You know, I've been at the university for many, many years, and much of what I was expecting to be the case has turned out to be the case. I'd say I was very proud of the way the community broadly dealt with the challenges of the pandemic. We are a large community, not as large as CSU or the community colleges, but we're 500,000 people. And both our working staff and faculty and our students all really did a great job of complying with the common sense public health guidelines that we set up to help us get through. And so we're very successful in coming through that phase of our existence with much less morbidity and mortality that we sadly saw in surrounding communities and across the country. In some cases, dramatically less, and we appreciate that. So that was, I was pleased to see how well the community could respond to those kinds of guidelines. Also very pleased to see how well we were just learning about different methods of education and how to continue research when you couldn't go to your lab regularly. And I would say that the faculty and staff and students all adapted quite well to the things that they had to do to make it through those difficult times. And then we're in this phase that I think none of us have fully an answer for, which is what is the future going to be? So we are in an active process of the return to work discussion. What is hybrid? How much is necessary? How much is good? How much online education do we do versus in-person education? What are the differences and outcomes there? What things can we do to continue to improve quality while controlling costs? And we're kind of, as a community, rolling through those things as we deal with the other challenges that the world brings to us. And so it's been a really evolutionary process from the most challenging days of the pandemic to the present, mostly post-pandemic future, but still moving with some trepidation into what that future is going to be.
Thank you, President Drake. You put that quite well, something that all of us are experiencing. For the next questions are for Chancellor Garcia and Vice Chancellor Lowe. Both of you are relatively new to your current roles, with Chancellor Garcia having started in October and Vice Chancellor Lowe in your new role having started in May. So starting with you, Chancellor Garcia, how have you approached your first months on the job?
Well, it's been a really busy 2 months, to say the least, in trying to meet representatives of all my stakeholders, from our students to our faculty, to our staff, to our legislators, to the governor's office. It's been wonderful. The good thing, though, is that I was president of Cal State Dominguez Hills and president of Cal State Fullerton, which gave me a perspective. And I know many of the presidents because they were my colleagues. In addition to that, I ran the new President's Academy at the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, where our presidents attend. And so I spent 10 days with these presidents, getting to know them and helping them during their first years in their tenure. So the good news is that I've learned a lot in meeting all of these individuals and trying to be everywhere every day, but also really taking advantage of those partnerships and leadership individuals that I know to help me see how the CSU has changed because of the dramatic changes in our environment.
Thank you, Chancellor Garcia. You seem well positioned, having taught, having experienced it, and now being at the top of the chain in terms of also learning yourself. Thank you for that answer. Vice Chancellor Lowe, how about you on your first few months on the job?
No, absolutely. Similar to Chancellor Garcia, while moving into a new position this past May of Executive Vice Chancellor, being able to build on prior experiences. So I had been with the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office since 2020, started the day before our office closed at the beginning of the pandemic. And so had some good times and experience getting to know the work, understanding the landscape, and having to do that in a time of emergency where we had to lean in and start to engage in new activities to support all 116 of our colleges as we transition to virtual learning. But prior to that, having spent 10 years on our campuses teaching, and so just knowing our system well, knowing well the operations of our colleges, and always keeping central the students that we serve and the mission and purpose of the California Community Colleges, I think has really been the backbone of my service here, continues to be my focus as a leader, is how do we continue continue to innovate our programs? How do we continue to better democratize our practices and policies and ensure equity for the students that we serve?
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Lowe. As I listen to all of your answers, I am further reminded how lucky California is to have such experienced leaders in your positions, such that when we were all faced with the pandemic, you all had it under control in terms of how and what the right values were to move forward and what needed to get to the students. So thank you for your service during those times. My next question is for all of you, and I'll start with you, Vice Chancellor Lowe, and this is the question. Recent events in the Middle East have been met with a wide-ranging and vocal response on college campuses across the nation and California. Please talk about how your institutions create or find that balance between fostering a climate of free speech and open debate and ensuring civility and the safety of students, faculty, and other members of the campus community.
No, absolutely. I think it begins, Tani, with exactly what you just said, finding that balance, to have spaces where free speech is allowed and respected, and that freedom of expression, but also ensuring that in the midst of that freedom of expression, that all of the community members that are present feel safe. So we feel very strongly for the California community colleges that we do not tolerate hate or bigotry on campus, and that we must protect the health and safety of our students, our faculty, and our staff. And that remains a #1 priority. And in light of recent events, right, part of our role has been to communicate that to our campuses and to make ourselves available to support them when issues or incidences do arise. We are a massive system, one of the most diverse systems in the nation, and the Chancellor's Office, along with our campuses, is committing to providing all students, faculty, and staff a safe and welcoming environment, but also a place where students and faculty and staff can uphold freedom of expression. And we are very sensitive to the reality that war and international conflict can be very traumatic for students and for families. And so in addition to reminding our campus leaders of their affirmative responsibility to provide a safe learning environment free of discrimination, we have also reminded our campuses to provide information about culturally relevant mental health services so that students can access those and have the support that they need during these difficult times.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lowe. Next, same question to you, Chancellor Garcia.
Well, like my colleague, Vice Chancellor Lowe, it is very similar. We are very strong in saying we are against intolerance, hate, and violence. And we have to find that balance. That's what a university is all about, to be able to have civil conversations in order for our students to learn how to live and debate in a democracy. This is a real important point that, our institutions are preparing leaders to be living in a democratic nation. And we are the educational laboratory where they can engage in that and learn how to do that. And we're doing that very similar to our community college colleagues, and I know our UC colleagues, where we're looking at curricula, we're looking at safe spaces, we're looking at safe zones, we're looking where they can ask questions and ask for support. We're providing for faculty, staff, and students support of our services and our mental health services that are on our campuses. And we are meeting with our presidents to learn from each other. So next week, we will have our executive leadership team in person, and we're going to have a panel of our presidents to share with each other how they are dealing with this situation on their campus in order to make sure that we are learning from the promising practices and the great work that's being done on our campuses.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Garcia. President Drake, same question.
Yes, and I appreciate the comments of my colleagues and echo them in all ways. I will say this is a very complicated issue, though, and I want to make sure that we are fully clear about what our obligations are and what our preferences are. So we are, in the scheme of things, we sort of, as the public university, have the role almost of the government in matters of free speech. And what the First Amendment says is that we shall not limit the free speech of our citizens. and we must in fact protect it. And so we believe in and we do everything we can to uphold the First Amendment rights of all of those who are in our community. And the First Amendment rights of all those in our community include the right to be distasteful and to say things with which people disagree. And that can in fact be uncomfortable. And so we can't say that we can assure that debate or opinions that people share is in fact, that they are in fact comfortable. We can't say that they are in fact respectful. We can't say any of those things because in fact the First Amendment defines and protects your right to have an opinion and to share it. It doesn't define what that opinion should be or how other people should feel about it. We believe very much in a diverse and inclusive world like ours, and we're more diverse on our campuses than the world normally is. And we have many tens of thousands of our students living on our campuses, so that our neighborhood becomes a more diverse neighborhood than really exists in places around the country otherwise. That is extraordinarily important to be respectful of each other, and extraordinarily important to eliminate hateful speech and attitudes. And we do all that we can to moderate those and to show people a better way. We care very much about protecting the safety of everyone on our campus and are dedicated to that. And I will say, though, in these last several weeks have shown that we have within our community people who have incompatible opposing views. And the challenge of supporting people working together to have incompatible opposing views is an ongoing everyday challenge for us. And we work really hard. My colleagues have spoken of that balance. It's an extraordinarily delicate balance, and we work every day on trying to maintain it.
Thank you, President Drake. We thank all of you for your thoughtful responses and the inclusiveness of those responses and the recognition of balance and the First Amendment and its protections. Thank you very much. My next question will be directed to President Drake and Chancellor Garcia. I'll start with you, Chancellor Garcia, and that is, the United States Supreme Court ruled recently in the Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard that race-based affirmative action programs in college admissions are unlawful because they violate the 14th Amendment. California's public college systems do not use race-based admissions programs since the 90s due to Prop 209. So the question for you and President Drake are, what have our California public higher education systems learned that can help inform how other states can advance diversity in higher education after the Harvard decision?
You know, I will begin by understanding that we at our campuses, at our universities, understand that we have to educate every student that walks in through our doors, and that it is a diverse population. There is no law in figuring out what are the different groups, and it is important that our institutions understand who are your students, where do they come from, and what do they bring to the table in order to ensure that they reach the learning outcomes that we are helping them reach. And so our institutions are actually looking at, for example, there's a crisis of young men in this country. So our campuses are looking at how do we help young men through our partnerships with K-12, community colleges, and hopefully sending them to the UC, that they are getting the support that they need in understanding the cultures that we represent and understanding that how they learn is important, understanding that families are important, going into communities and speaking in their language and in their space in order for them to see that our campuses are a place for them. They are not telling us, we're saying don't use it in admissions, but once we have them, how do we make sure that every group and every student reaches their highest potential with the support that we give them? We set the standards high, but what we do is we help those students reach those standards and meeting students where they are.
Thank you, Chancellor Garcia. President Drake?
I appreciate this. We've had a 30-year experience in doing what we could to be inclusive and balance our classes without using affirmative action as described and as the courts have found wanting. And the way we've gone about that is by using a comprehensive, holistic pattern or method of reviewing applications. We look at the whole person. That's who you are, your life experiences, your opportunities, the challenges you've met, how you've overcome those challenges, how you've dealt with the world that you have faced. And by doing that, we find we're able to make offers to those people who we believe are most appropriately qualified for the university. It takes a little more effort than affirmative action in many ways, because we have to really look at all the characteristics of the person's life that led to them being who they are. But we've been practicing this now for nearly 30 years, and it works quite well. We this year admitted the largest class of California freshmen in our history, but also the greatest number of California freshmen from underrepresented backgrounds in our history. So we're continuing to move forward. And in fact, our classes are more inclusive and more diverse than those of similar public research universities in other parts of the country that had been using affirmative action for all of these years. And so not perfect, not enough perhaps, but not less than we would have achieved with affirmative action. And we want to continue to push forward.
Thank you, President Drake. And it's a related question, but I think that the community colleges are so diverse, and also having been there myself many years ago, I ask you, Executive Vice Chancellor Lowe, about the same question as it pertains to what community colleges can do to show other states the success of our programs.
No, absolutely. Thank you for that. So for community colleges, it's a slightly different consideration, right? We accept the top 100% of students that come to us as an open access two-year higher education system. That said, when you have a decision like the recent Supreme Court decision, it does have a chilling effect, right? It does create concern on your campus about what does that mean for our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Is this a signal that we need to pull back or detract on some of those efforts? And so for our system, we are communicating very loudly and supporting our colleges that we should not waver in our commitment to addressing racial disparities, to reducing achievement gaps, that we should continue the work of positioning our students to reach their educational objectives. And as my colleagues have shared, really focus on who are your students, what do they need, and how do you provide them what they need so that they can be successful. So we will continue to move forward with our DEIA agenda, which is really aimed at increasing faculty and staff diversity, which we know is important. We will continue to do that. Focus on improving campus culture and fostering a climate of universal belonging that will help all students reach their potential. And so that continues to be a focus for us, a focus for Chancellor Christian, our New Vision 2030. It's actually one of our first strategic actions of our New Vision 2030 is to continue to focus on DEIA and closing these long-term persistent racial achievement gaps.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Lowe. My next question is about dual enrollment. And so I'll start with you, Vice Chancellor Lowe, because community colleges Chancellor Sonia Christian and yourself, you've been strong advocates for dual enrollment, by which high school students enroll in college courses and earn college credit. PPIC's research has discussed the potential of dual enrollment for improving student outcomes. It's a two-part question. So please talk about why dual enrollment is important and how California community colleges can help this approach reach high school students who might not otherwise be thinking about college themselves.
No, thank you for that question. We believe dual enrollment is important for a number of reasons. And in particular, as we focus on closing achievement gaps for low-income students, for students of color, for students who have historically been disenfranchised and disconnected from higher education, beginning a student's journey to becoming a college scholar in high school, we think is very important. That is partly about identity and possibility, right? Helping a young high school student to begin to consider their future, to consider what it means for them to continue their education and become a college scholar, and also making use of dual enrollment to help those high school students start to think about career and their workforce options. And as you mentioned, Tani, we definitely see in the research the benefits to high school students. High school students who engage in dual enrollment are more likely to graduate high school. They are more likely then to apply to and be admitted into higher education and to make it successfully through higher education. So we think that dual enrollment can and should be an important lever used for closing equity gap. So part of our work now, again, under Dr. Christian's leadership and our new strategic vision for the community college systems, Vision 2030, is a strong focus on exponentially expanding our dual enrollment offerings across the state. As you all know, we also have from our governor, the governor's office, a goal around expanding dual enrollment. And this vision, can we imagine a future where every high school student in California completes their high school diploma with at least 12 credits of college dual enrollment credit? And those 12 credits, perhaps when they're younger, initially being some sort of career exploration course to help them to start to think about their future, them making use of that time of dual enrollment in high school to complete some of their necessary general education transfer requirements like English or math. For other students, it might be an opportunity for them to get some vocational training that will allow them to secure a higher wage job while they continue their education. So we see so much potential and possibility here, and really think that as we invest in dual enrollment in the years to come, we will reap those dividends in having more students in general and more students of color continuing their educational journey after high school, not just with our colleges, but with our four-year partners as well.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Lowe. And I would like to ask about something related to dual enrollment, and that is all of your perspectives on the transfer pathway, as this is a very closely related to obtaining that goal of ensuring that we improve the numbers on increases in four-year colleges. So the transfer pathway, as you know, for community colleges to CSU and USC is a critical issue for higher education in our state. And policymakers and educators have taken steps in recent years to strengthen the pathway and to help more students pursue a bachelor's degree. However, despite notable gains, racial and regional disparities remain. So please describe your system's priorities when it comes to strengthening the transfer pathway in our state. And I'll start with you, Chancellor Garcia.
Well, let me begin by saying is we are extremely diverse, and our partners in this is truly the community colleges. We bring in more transfer students than many places in the nation, which not only brings the number of students, it brings the diversity that is so important to our state. Our campuses all are working on making sure that our transfer pipeline is strong with our community colleges. As a matter of fact, we even have some courses taught at the community colleges for the acceptance in addition to their associate degree or their transfer degree. So we are working with every single campus. This is the lifeblood of our system, where our students start out at the community college, transfer to the CSU, and hopefully maybe go off to the UC for their master's and doctoral program. I speak with this about passion because I was one of those students. And when we talked about dual enrollment and transfer, I want to say that when you're low income and first generation, I used to think, oh, the university is for rich people. It's really not for me. I don't see myself there. And taking classes, let's say at a community college or at a high school, with a faculty member from your CSU campus, it opens up possibilities and gives you confidence that, yes, that may be a place where you belong, and that this is a place for you, that, yes, different from when I was there are faces and faculty and staff and students that look like you, that will accept you and bring you in and help you reach your amazing goals.
Thank you, Chancellor Garcia. I was a dual enrollment transfer student myself, so birds of a feather. President Drake.
Well, a flock of birds of a feather. I was a transfer student as well, and it was a great pathway for me. We were very proud of our transfer program at the University of California and our great partnership with our community colleges across the state. We have, in many cases, 50% or even double the number of transfer students that, again, comparable universities like ours do across the country. About a third, 30% or so of our graduates are students who began who transferred to us, and so it's a significant part of our student body and something that's very, very important to us. And we are pleased about efforts with colleagues in the state to make the transfer pathway even more straightforward for those students who can avail themselves of these opportunities. And so it's something I know our faculty are continuing to work together. We continue to work with the legislature. We have a new program that we are piloting next year that's meant to help community colleges with very low sending rates for transfer students to increase those sending rates. We have some community colleges, and they tend to be relatively close to where our universities are, that have relatively high sending rates. We have others that may be 100 or 200 or 300 miles away from many of our campuses that have very low sending rates. And we're looking at a pilot program to do what we can to increase the diversity of community colleges that are sending us students, and look forward to continue to being a national leader in accepting, educating, and graduating community college transfers from our university.
Thank you, President Drake. And Vice Chancellor Lowe, you get to wrap up this question.
Thank you very much. Well, as we all know, the California Community College systems, campuses, have been diligently working on improving transfer processes that is core to our mission and the work that our colleges do. And we look forward to continuing to partner with our fellow system and state leaders to address and improve transfer and ensure we have student-centered policies that increase transfer. Much of that work for us in the past decade has been the work of the associate degree for transfer, where our community colleges have really innovated their associate degree pathways to align them with the requirements necessary for transfer so that we can streamline that process for students. And we are excited to see the growth that has taken place in ADT completion from a low of 23 completers in 2010 to a high of 70,000 associate degree for transfer completers in 2021. So a massive increase there. And as we continue to work collaboratively with our UC and CSU partners, we're really focused on how do we dismantle barriers and simplify the process, align transfer pathways, and make it as straightforward and seamless for students as possible. One thing we've been looking at recently is that while we have had a massive increase in the number of students who earn an ADT, a very high percentage of those students then don't transfer. Some don't even apply to transfer. So we're really digging into why is that, right? Why are they achieving this associate degree for transfer and not moving forward? So we're excited for a number of projects and initiatives that we are partnering with our four-year partners on. Looking at CSU, we're working with leadership at the CSU office of the chancellor to re-engage those ADT earners who have completed that ADT but have not transferred. So we're excited for that partnership, and thank you for your support of that, Chancellor Garcia. A number of partnerships with the UC Office of the President. We have a Central Valley Transfer Demonstration Project where we are bringing together the community colleges, the CSUs, and the UCs in that region, and working collaboratively on how do we map our courses to the four-year requirements and ensure that we have clear transfer pathways. So there's a lot of exciting collaboration that is taking place, and we will continue to do that work because we know in particular for our students that are more likely to be working adults, to be students who are parents, time is their greatest enemy. They don't have time to waste or to give. The loss of credits, confusion about the process can really derail their trajectory because they are managing real life and the complexities of life. And so we're excited to continue these partnerships and envisioning a future transfer process that is so clear that it almost naturally funnels students through the process from our community colleges to our four-year partners.
Thank you for all of your thoughtful answers and especially your intentional efforts to continue the transfer for the ultimate point of getting young people into college, into a four-year degree. It's amazing what can be done with collaboration and innovation. Thank you for all that each of you are doing in this manner. The next issue I want to address with all of you is AI, artificial intelligence. It's received, as you know, a tremendous amount of attention recently, and it poses both opportunities and risks for education and other professions at all levels. Starting with you, President Drake, how is your system thinking about the implications of AI?
Well, it's I think will be transformative to our society in so many ways. And, it's thought of as being artificial intelligence, but I also think of it as augmented intelligence, things that can be used to help us rather than take the place of what we're doing. Example would be the lane departure warnings that you might have in a car that say, gee, there's somebody in your blind spot that you're not seeing. It doesn't drive the car for you. It just says, here's some more information that I want to give you that you might not have had as you're making a decision. So your own intelligence is augmented. And thinking of this as something that can help us do our work rather than replace the work. There are many parts of this that I'm very excited about. One, we were just talking about the transfer pathway and making the transfer pathway clear to people. Having AI support in doing that and bringing information to students and analyzing their curriculum and their pathway and all of that stuff that students can do on their own, I think that will be a big help. We think that AI will be, there'll be transformative changes with AI in our healthcare system. More than half of our budget, in fact, is devoted to the healthcare part of our enterprise. And we think that there can be things that help educate patients, help do record keeping for doctors, help in decision-making support in the medical enterprise. We think those things are on their way and coming. We think in the broad educational sphere that there are tutorials and educational support that can come from an AI perspective that will help students move along. And actually, the robot and AI can meet every student where they happen to be and helping them to get to the knowledge that they need to be able to display competency in a given course. And so we think there are ways that AI can be used to help in our educational process. AI is used actively in our research enterprise now in a variety of ways, and we believe that will only increase. We are concerned about the ethics of AI at the end of on one edge. We are concerned about things like ChatGPT and people who are getting too much assistance in things like writing papers. So we are balancing that in real time these days. Overall, I think this is going to be a net good, but we have to make sure to keep our eyes and ears opened, but I believe it's going to be an incredibly important part of the future.
Thank you, President Drake. And I like how you think about it as augmented intelligence, which also makes it more understandable and less forbidding. And of course, like all things, as you pointed out, balance is going to be the key here. Same question to you, Vice Chancellor Lowe.
I'm so excited for this question. And this is something we are actually fully embracing. So this is a part of the vision that our Chancellor, Dr. Sonia Christian, has brought to the community colleges, that AI is here, right? It's not on the horizon, it is here. And similar to what President Drake shared, really a focus on how do we utilize it as a tool that can help our students, help our institutions, and not be fearful of what it might introduce into the teaching and learning process. So we've actually called out within Vision 2030 under this category of planning for the future of teaching and learning, generative artificial intelligence. How do we understand it? How do we understand how to best maximize its potential as a tool, as President Drake said, to help students in the appropriate ways in the teaching and learning process? But how do we also create pathways to prepare the AI workers of the future, right? I think we have not yet seen what artificial intelligence is going to mean for the workforce, what it's going to mean for the future of jobs, but we want to get ahead of that and make sure that we are designing the sort of pathways that will prepare students to be ready to fulfill those jobs, but then also making use of it to help us in processes that we need to engage in. I love what President Drake shared. We actually have just entered into a partnership with Dr. Pardos, who is a professor at UC Berkeley, who makes good use of AI and machine learning. And he's going to help us at the community colleges as we have a mandate to transition to system-wide common course numbering. How do we find commonality among 40,000 courses across 73 districts and 116 colleges? We're going to lean on artificial intelligence and machine learning learning and the work of Dr. Pardos to help us to navigate that process. So great potential. We're really focused on that potential and trying to bring our colleges along and help them understand how they can utilize it for good.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Lowe. We'll be interested in your progress as you start to curate all that information. Same question to you, Chancellor Garcia.
Like my colleagues, we are also very focused on what could be a wonderful opportunity, really paying attention to what the threats may be as well. We have already started a system-wide committee, including faculty, to not only look at the teaching, learning, and scholarship, but to look at the applications to enhance productivity, for example, information technology, looking at security and data privacy that we really need to pay attention to, and things like procurement. We're making sure that we're bringing in experts to talk about this and making sure that we start to think about what are the guidelines we can give? What are the procedures and policies that we can put together? And this system-wide group representing all of our campuses and our staffs and employees, ensuring that we have those guidelines as we embrace it. I think about when the internet, I'm aging myself, when the internet came, we were afraid of the internet, weren't we? And we were all scared of what was going to happen. And then we finally started to work that through. Same thing with AI, embracing innovation, seeing how it's going to help the future, how it's going to help jobs, yes, but how it's going to change our lives, which is something else. Thinking about, well, how you went and picked up your dry cleaning at one point, and now how you do it today, or how you get money out of a bank and how that changed. How is our lives going to change with AI?
Well, I'm excited by your excitement and also your plans. Sounds like the right people are in place for this at the universities. We're at our point in our program now. We will invite questions from the audience. And I remind the audience that you can send your email question to this email, ppicEventsQuestions@gmail.com. And hopefully we'll have time to get to them while we begin this process of the Q&A. We have our first question, and I will start from the top of the first question, and it's from Patrick Blacklock with the Rural County Representatives of California. And he says this: at least 4 entire counties, Alpine, Amador, Modoc, and Mariposa, are entirely outside the boundaries of any existing community college district. Worse, many of the underserved communities within these counties lack access to high-speed internet and thus are excluded from even the limited courses offered through Calbright College, which is the state's online college. Given the state's role in higher education planning and that these counties and the underserved communities within them are not part of any existing community college district's long-range planning efforts, what efforts are underway to ensure that these communities are considered as part of the future higher education access and planning? And I'll ask you, Vice Chancellor Lowe, about that question.
No, thank you so much for that very appropriate question. So I will start by saying there actually are some efforts underway. So in particular, I want to make note of work that is taking place intersegmentally in our state for the implementation of Assembly Bill 928, which is focused on increasing transfer access in that intersegmental group, where we have a representative leadership from the community colleges, UC, CSU, as well as our private institutions through AICCU. We've really been grappling with this very question. One of the goals that are provided within Assembly Bill 928 is the closing of regional opportunity and equity gaps with access to higher education. And part of our discussion has been, how do we close those gaps? We talk about things like online education and things of that nature, but as the person who put in the question exhibited, even that can be difficult in very rural areas. So part of what that committee is putting together, we have a set of recommendations we have just literally ratified yesterday to present to the state of California, is that we take the time to do a comprehensive regional landscape analysis of these communities that are lacking in the infrastructure for higher education, that we understand what the gaps and the needs are, but also understand what the opportunities are, what does exist, and that we focus in on a very localized strategy for closing those gaps. What might that mean? In addition to expanding online opportunities, that might also mean satellite campus opportunities. It might mean opportunities where the systems and segments of higher education come together to share space and provide shared opportunities to those more remote locations. We think it's definitely also going to mean some important partnerships with employers, where again, you could utilize the space that industry might have present in a region, create partnerships with industry for higher education pathways for credentials and degrees that are very much focused on workforce and economic development. And again, how could you have faculty from across segments working with employers to bring a localized need to our more obscure regions so that they have those opportunities. So that's some of the conversation and work that is underway, but definitely also want to note this idea, this concept of bringing college to the community is something that is central for the California community colleges. You will hear our chancellor say this often. We are moving out of the traditional space of waiting for the people to come to us. Our focus as we look towards Vision 2030 is how do we identify the needs of the community and bring college to them.
Thank you for that answer, Vice Chancellor Lowe, and thank you, Patrick, also for that important question, a critical question, to ensure that no one is left behind in our pursuit of higher access to education in California. Our next question comes from Alex Verme with Teamsters Local 2010. CSU's skilled trades workers were on a one-day strike against the CSU on November 14th, and CSU's faculty has scheduled strikes at a number of CSU campuses next week. The question is, how will Chancellor Garcia ensure labor peace and fair pay for CSU employees at this critical moment for the CSU as an institution? Chancellor Garcia?
Yes, thank you for the question. We truly believe in fair and equitable wages for all of our employees. And we are at the bargaining table with giving fair bargaining and being respectful of what we are discussing. It is important to know that 4 of our unions, thank God, have already agreed to the bargaining agreement. And we will continue to work in good faith with both the Teamsters and our other unions to ensure that we are bargaining in good faith and that we are respectful of their thoughts and that we welcome them being back at the bargaining table with us as we move forward.
Thank you, Chancellor Garcia. The next question comes from Angela Lynn, a recent college graduate here in California. And she writes, despite numerous reports that the economy has recovered from the pandemic, many graduates find themselves in one of the most competitive and difficult job markets of the decade. Recent graduates are qualified and seeking employment, but they aren't getting employed. How are public higher education leaders preparing students for careers after college and ensuring that they have the skills to find success in the ever-changing California job market? And I'll give this question to you, President Drake.
Well, thank you for the easy question there. What I will say is that we are really pleased with how well we prepare our graduates to be leaders in California and in their communities and to be fully prepared for the job market. The job market, of course, is there are challenges in the job market. Nevertheless, there are communities in which, although there are many jobs that are available and vacant, we have actually 4,000 open jobs at the University of California at this time, so thousands of jobs are open. We also have places where jobs are quite impacted, and it's challenging for people to find jobs, particularly in certain regions and in certain fields. And that is an ongoing relationship between our graduates, their job skills, their family and life circumstances, and the ever-changing job market. So our role in this is to do our very best to prepare students to leave with a degree and knowledge and skills that are effective and valuable in the job market. And overwhelmingly, that is the case. It sometimes can take longer than we wish for a match to occur, but our work says that overwhelmingly our students are able to be employed, ultimately able to be employed and able to contribute at a high level.
Thank you, President Drake. And I want to thank Alex and Angela for their questions. Alex about the strike and Angela about preparing students for employment after college degrees. We have a question from Steve Karp at Cal Poly Humboldt. And he writes that our three systems, all of here represented today, have the top faculty who are experts in their fields. So how are we tapping into this expertise to help solve higher education challenges faced by each of us? Two examples. We have lower enrollment in the CSU, and part of the solution is better marketing of ourselves. Are we engaging our marketing business faculty in helping to solve? Current students are looking to have the choice of attending both in person and online. Are we using our IT faculty to help create state-of-the-art bimodal experiences? And I'll give you that question, Chancellor Garcia.
You know, my predecessor, intern Chancellor Kester, really started work groups that included faculty leaders, students, and administration to solve problems. One of them was our GI 2025 initiative, which wants to move the agenda. The other was our financial sustainability work group, which also talked about what are the issues with our budget, which is always a problem for state colleges and universities, including community colleges. So for us, it's about how do we put work groups with our faculty leaders and experts to help us move the agenda forward on very hot topics. And I will continue to work in that direction because I saw the wealth of opportunity. Our Black Student Success Work Group that brought up 13 recommendations on how to bring in, had the voice of our African-American faculty and staff to move that agenda. It is about collaboration. It is about using our experts and to using that appropriately.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. The next question is from Stephen J. Handel, Director of Strategy, ECMC Foundation. Would President Drake care to comment on Governor Newsom and the legislature's desire to create guaranteed transfer pathways from a California community college to the most selective competitive UC campuses?
Yeah, this is more complex than the question I think would make one think. A guaranteed pathway. We're entirely in favor of straightforward transfer. We have the most successful transfer program of its kind in the country. As I mentioned, 30% of our students are transfer students, so it works, in fact, very, very well. We are a capacity limited enterprise as we speak. We have more applicants than we have seats. And so we can't accommodate everyone who might qualify for us. That's an important point. As we create a guarantee in one place, we can do that. We then, in fact, take the place of someone else. We don't increase the number of students we have by creating guarantees. We simply limit and streamline the pathway to those guarantees. We find that in many cases, the pathway to a streamlined guarantee really benefits students who are at community colleges where there's a high transfer rate and are close to UC campuses, and by the reciprocal token, disadvantages those community colleges that are further afield and where there are few people being sent to today. So what we don't want to do is to narrow the stream of applicants that we get or eliminate the opportunity for people from more diverse backgrounds to be able to apply. So streamlining that transfer, great. Ways that we can streamline transfer, great. We don't want there to be unanticipated or collateral damage to the process that in fact limits the transferability or the transferability for people who come from community colleges that may be further afield, which is why it's a complicated question. And happy to streamline, happy to make it work better, want to make sure that we balance opportunity broadly.
Thank you, President Drake. And we have less than 1 minute left in the program, and I know we could go farther. I apologize for those whose questions we could not reach because they're all interesting and I would love to have heard your answers. But I do want to thank our distinguished panel for their time, their thoughtful answers, and their leadership. So we thank you, President Drake. We thank you, Chancellor Garcia, and thank you, Vice Chancellor Lowe, for your time. And as I indicated, you're lending yourself to improving California for all of us. We also want to thank the Sutton family for sponsoring this event. And also you'll receive a survey later today. Please fill out the survey so we can improve. Thank you.